Hello, welcome to Zigmatech Learning Hub. I will be your instructor for fine art. You can call it visual art as well, cultural and creative art. Now for this class, we are going to be taking our exercises from the ExamGuide app. Now if you don't have this application installed already in your device, I will advise you download this app in order for you to follow along this class. Now, ExamGuide is a leading educational app that helps students prepare adequately for exams, for various exams, such as UTME, post-UTME, WAEC, GCE, KCPE, IJMB, JUPEB, Calbepedia, BECE, JSCE, NCEE, NECO, to mention but a few. You can download the app from our website www.examguide.com, or you can download it as well as using your Google Play Store. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to be updated on new videos as we upload. Now, if you're ready for today's class, okay, let's get started. Okay, welcome back to the part 2 of reproduction process in art, which is your printing making. Now, in the part 1, we've talked about relief, and I want to believe you grab everything concerning relief. Now, in this part 2, we are going to look at some other printing making ancient method that you can actually practice both in your classes, at home, even anywhere. So now let's hit it straight and then look into some of this one. The next one we'll talk about is the silk screen printing. The silk screen printing. Now, printing by forcing paint or ink through the opening on a silk screen is known as silk screen printing. The art of forcing paint or ink through openings on a silk screen is known as what? Silk screen printing. However, there is what is known as the mesh. Now, the mesh is what is used, that holds the screen and the silk screen. As we proceed, I'm going to show you all that so you understand. Now, it is common to both graphics and textile production. Now, this is a production that is common to both graphics and textile production. Now, if you watch this design, I can put it to you that it is a screen printing product. It can actually be a heat transfer. It can actually be flux print. However, too, it can actually be silk screen printing. So it looks like this. All right. Now, this is the process in which silk or organdia mesh is tightly stretched over a wooden frame. Now, while the paint is forced through somewhat predetermined areas onto another surface, like what the paper, fabric, and what plastic. Now, what I'm trying to explain, I'm just trying to break down the definition of what the mesh. Now, I said this is the process in which silk or organdia mesh, we call it the mesh. For those of you that know what they call the pap, in our local word, we call it akamu. Yes, the akamu. Now, there is a fabric that they use to sieve the akamu. Now, sometimes you can use that fabric as what? As a mesh or as a silk screen. Now, that mesh, you frame it on a wooden frame, and then stretch it very tight. Then you block the places you don't want ink to pass through. And then after blocking it, you can block it with stop bond, with any other chemical. We have advanced chemical, which is the emulsion and the synthesizer. You mix the emulsion and the synthesizer, and then you apply it on the surface. That is a different product discussion altogether. But we are trying as much as possible to explain these things to you. But when you get to school, you can ask your teacher. By the time you go back to school, you start feeling good. You understand? So do you know what they call silk printing? And then you explain one or two things for him. You understand? All right. So while the paint is what forced through somewhat the same predetermined area onto another surface like paper, fabric, plastic, etc. Now, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, if you watch, you see the frame. Now, that is known as what? And this yellowish background is what? Is the mesh. And this is the wooden frame. And then they have now applied color on the mesh, and they are now using what? Their squeegee to roll on it. Now, they will transfer the color to the openings. All these places you are seeing yellow, they are open. They will transfer force the color through it, and then the printing will be done on the white background. So, such areas with created images are left open while unwanted areas are blocked with what? A coat of maybe glue, silica, film, or any other suitable what? Material. There is no limit on what the kind of material you can actually use in doing that. So this is just exactly another diagram how silk screen printing is being done. You see, you press and then you drive your color on it. Okay. Now, design and screen printing are created during what? Through stenciling. That's another method where you can actually create what? Design with screen printing. Is a similar method. Now, listen, stenciling is another form of printing, but it is actually going out of, vogue. Now, paper and cardboard can serve as what? The stencil. You can get a paper and cardboard that can serve as a stencil. Images are drawn and the part to be broken away or cut off with stencil knife, and then you leave the other parts that you don't want to be cut off, which is what the positive. Remember, I told you in our subsequent class that we'll have the negative and the positive. Now, after drawing your design on the paper, you get your stencil cutter, and then you cut out the places you don't want. And when you cut out the places you don't want, then the places you want becomes what? You leave them, so that ink does not pass through those places. So by the time you force color on the surface of that stencil, you transfer the design on your what? Product. All right, so this is a perfect example of what I'm trying to tell you. Now you see how they're taking their time to cut out the letters. See the A, and now you cut out what is holding it is called the stencil knife. So this is known as what? A stencil. Now the stencil is then fixed onto the mesh surface and traced out. Then the unwanted areas are then blocked with glue, after which paint is forced through the mesh, as was explained earlier on. So this is just how silk screen printing is being done. Now, the essence of bringing in stenciling is to let you know that you can actually use the stencil and the silk screen printing hand in hand. Pari passu, they work hand in hand. In the places where you don't have, the needed material, you can actually work with what? With your stencil to create the desired result. Now, if you see, this is the alphabet from A to Z that is cut out on a stencil. Now, it has been placed on this surface. By the time you use your color and you use your ink, and you get your color and then you use your foam, dab your foam on the color and then dab it on the stencil. If you remove that paper, this write-up will be transferred on the wooden surface or any other surface that is placed beneath it. That is known as what? Stenciling. It's known as what? Stenciling. Okay. So, now some of the materials that is needed for this potato or yam print. It's like the name implies. You need your potato, you need your yam, you need ink, you need a poster color, you need your brushes, you need your pen, you need your knife, you need cutter, blade, razor, to mention but a few. Now, when you've gotten all these materials, the next thing you need is your surface. Is your what? Is your surface. Now, remember we talked about, the relief kind of printing. The same approach you use in your relief or your interglue is the same approach you should use in the yam and potato print. However, I have some things I would want to use as an example. Now, we have a board. Now, this is a wooden board. This is my marker, which I'll use to draw the image on this board. I'm just trying to give us a reference how you can actually use your potato or your yam or your nora or your wood to create those designs. Now, this is a wooden board. Now, by the time you get these things done, as in you get them arranged, you look for a topic that you want to create. Is it a floral design? Is it what kind of design? What is the motif? What exactly do you want to create on this? Okay, let me just say you want to create, let me just use a random drawing like a fish. Sorry, I will just hold my body and I'll just draw the fish. Forgive my fish, but let's just have an idea of what I'm trying to. I hope you're seeing it. Okay, so this is the eye of the fish. You can relate with this fish. It's a Nigerian fish. Okay. All right. So we can just create the scales. Let's leave it at this. Let's leave this as our design. Now the next thing you would do is you get your cutting tools. We have different nibs and different cutter. Now we call these are chisels. These are chisels for, we call them carving chisel. Now some of them have the curve shape. Some of them comes in flat form. You can get this in your library, in your art shop, your art studio. You can get them to use them. And then we have the V-shape carving chisel. So these are the things you use in carving of anything you want to do, with both the yam carving, the potato carving. You can just use it. So let's say we've produced this fish and then we want to use, imagine, let's turn your imagination on, and this is our yam. So we want to carve out this fish of the yam. Then what do? You just start carving straight. You force it out. I might not be able to do this because of our time, but that is just exactly how it works. So you carve out, because the yam will not be as hard as this. This is very hard. So I can't start doing this now, but your yam will not be as hard as this. By the time you just trace, you trace them, you trace them, you trace it, trace out the line. After tracing out the line, then you apply color on this. By the time you apply color on this and you place it on any surface, and then you press it, by the time you take it off, automatically this fish you designed here will appear on the surface of what? That stuff you did. Reason being, you've removed the negative part of it. So this is on that pattern, how you can actually create. With this, by the time you master this, you can actually start making stamps, for companies. Yes, that's exactly how they make stamps. You can start making stamps, start making embossed cards for people if you master the art of what? YAM, or interglow, or relief printing. So having said that, so let's go back to what we are talking about. Now this is a potato, and then the design you're seeing there is an already made design that is gotten from what? The potato. So you can actually try that at home. You must not necessarily have this particular kind of chisel. You can use your cutter, you can use your knife, you can use anything to cut them out. All right. So how the procedure on how to make the potato or yam printing, like just exactly what I just explained to you. First of all, you cut the pieces of yam or potato smoothly into 2 halves, and then after doing that, have the cutter, the outer skin removed. Like you have the outer skin removed. After removing the outer skin, carefully without tampering with the what? With the print surface. First, you peel the surface of the yam, or you cut it into 2 and then use the inside part of what? Part of it to avoid damaging what? Your design. All right. So after doing that, the next thing you just do, you hold your potato and then you start pasting your design straight up, just like the image you're seeing in the front of your screen. Okay. Now, to make a sketch or your design on the yam surface with any pointed object, like I told you, you can use either of this or any pointed object, putting somewhat stretch on the areas to be chopped off. Cut the design in relief form, remove the non-printing areas, prepare the page on which you want to print on. More so if it is pattern printing. The image you see here was exactly what we talked about in our previous class. Now, what kind of repeat pattern is this? For those of you that were in our previous class, we talked about repeat pattern. So if you've not watched the video for repeat pattern, I will advise you go see it so you really understand more of what we're talking about in this lesson. So the repeat pattern, depending on the repeat pattern, you're seeing in front of your screen now is all over repeat pattern. So that's a potato kind of repeat pattern. Okay. Now you apply the paint or the ink with a brush, and then you start making your design. So that is exact. Now remember, if you are using more than one color, this is key. If you're painting with more than one color, start with a light color first. Finish with one color. Let me say if you're starting with yellow, make sure you are done with yellow. You wash the surface, keep it, and then you get the next color and then print. You don't start with a dark color. You will spoil or you will damage your surface. You will damage your work. You start with a darker color, or with a lighter color rather, and then make sure you're done with it. Then before you enter, you take the second color. So this is the picture of exactly what we're trying to show you. You see how he's taking his time to cut out the leaf design in the yam. You see how he's chopping it off. Quite interesting. I wish you can just try this at home. You can use anything of your choice. So make sure you get this and then you print. Show it to anybody around you. Could be your class teacher, could be a friend. Look at the design I created. And then it comes out very loud. All right. Now you allow the work to dry. Now after cutting out and doing all those stuff, you allow the work to dry before closing the pad or before what? Submission for what? Assessment. You understand? Don't just take a wet work, because out of excitement, you just take a wet work and then you're taking it to somebody. Before you know it, you just smudge the work and then it's no longer look interesting anymore. So advise you allow the work to dry properly before you fold to avoid smudging. So this is a beautiful carved out design from a potato. You see, that's a leaf that is carved out from a potato. You can try yours at home. All right. Now the next one we are going to talk about is the texture printing. I guess this will be the last, because of our time, this will be the last printing method we're going to talk about. There are many of them we can talk about, but for the course of this study, we're just going to look at this. Now, texture printing. Now, there are various textures available in natural and artificial and even man-made objects, and it can be explored and used as what? Printing surface. What do I mean by that? When I say there are texture that is available in natural, in artificial, and in man-made objects that can be explored and used as printing. What I'm saying is you can use anything to print. You can print with this. You can print with your shoe sole. You see, by the time, let me say, if on a sandy ground, if you press the sole of your shoe on the ground, you see that very beautiful design on the sole. So the same thing, you can print with all that. You can print with anything and everything. Now, for example, of nature are the back of a leaf, the back of a tree, stones, snail shells, animal shells, any shells. You understand? You can also use feather. You can use sponge or even your finger. Your fingerprint could also be a very beautiful design. Now, for those of you that have been seeing, the political campaign, you see them pressing their fingerprint on that. It is only the finger that can make that design. Nothing else can create that. So you need a finger to create that design. So which means nature has provided us with a texture that is just for you and you alone. So having said that, these are some of the textural surface in which you can actually make your print. All right. So to show us more about the textural surface, now this is artificial textural surface. It's been carved. You can actually call this a low relief textural surface. Okay. Now artificial textural surface or those from man-made objects can be obtained from household items like comb, slippers, sole of your slippers or sole of your shoe, jewel rings, forks, spoons, knife, to mention, but if there are too numerous to mention, you can eventually use anything or everything as a printing medium. Now the method of doing this textural print is very simple. It is expressed as follows. We are going to express how you can actually do texture printing. These I think you can practice at home, anywhere, any place. Now get the object or material you want to print on. First, if it is a cloth, if it's on the paper, if it's on a board, so the wood, you get it, you fasten it on the table, then you prepare the paper or the surface on which you want to print. Apply ink or paint on the texture, which is, if you want to use this as a texture, you apply ink on the surface of the texture with your brush and paint. Then you repeat this process if you're making a pattern for the printing exercise. Now, for example, by the time you apply the color on your surface, you start printing. Then you print and print and print. When you're done, you're good. Now, if it depends on the printing pattern or the printing pattern you're going, it could be full drop, it could be half drop, it could be diamond repeat pattern, it could be all over the repeat pattern, it could be bricks. You understand? Depending on the printing pattern you choose. That is why we talked about the printing pattern first before we're talking about these particular lessons. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So you first of all know the printing pattern you want to do, create the marks, create the borders, and then so that by the time you start printing, you don't make mistakes. So having said this, let us do a quick summary of what we've discussed so far. Now, first of all, we talked about the definition of printing. We explained the origin of printing making. Then we talked about the different printing making processes, which I told you we have the silk skin printing. We have the YAMB cut or texture printing. We have the lithography. We have you name them. All that we discussed in this lesson. We have the interglow, and then we have the relief. We also talked about, we state the techniques in printing making, and then we'll list some printing making processes. However, we also talked about the practicals on how to do these things ourselves. Apart from listing them, we did a little practicals where I showed you, I used an example of the fish on a board, and I told you you can actually do that with a yam or a potato or any soft surface. Now, this is, by the time you practice this over and over again and create some beautiful design, you can actually get your shirt and customize your clothes. Yes, you look for a nice acrylic color, get maybe the yam or your sapers that you're no longer using, draw your design, carve it out, apply color on it, and then you paste it at the center of your shirt. It comes out very nice, but take permission from your mom or your dad or anybody around you. Unless you got the shirt yourself anyway, then you can actually practicalize with it. But I would advise you try with papers first before you graduate into making designs on clothes. I know you are eager, you're rushing now, you want to try those things. Fine, you're free, but take permission and make sure there is an adult. If you're a child, make sure there's an adult with you while you do this. Thank you so very much for sitting down with us. But before we go, let's try our knowledge on some of the things we've learned so far. Now, number one question, I'll just ask you just two simple questions. Number one question I'll ask you is to explain the different printing making products. What are the printing making products? They are too numerous to mention. Can you try? Did I hear you say clothes? Yes. Book? You're very correct. They are too numerous to mention. Now, state and explain two printing techniques. Can you state and explain two printing techniques? Come on now, try your hands on it. All right. If you can't, I will advise you go back to the video and watch for yourself so that you can actually attempt some of these questions. And this is how far we can go for today. And then let's try our hands on the exam guide. Okay, so welcome to the exam guide. Now you know what we're talking about, the topic we're talking about find and apply that, you check it. If you've been here with us this long, you should know how to go through this. And then random, you select the topics, and then you click select the topics that is related to what we just talked about now, and then you click let's get started. All right, I want us to see some few questions, like question number 14. Now, the major reason for creating a hole in a sculptural work is for what? This is a random question. I just want you to try your hands on it. The major reason for creating a hole in a sculptural work is for what? Yes? Let's see. Question 42. Which of the following is the first step to a poster design? Following is the first step to a poster design. Can you try that question? Come on now, yes? Is it applying fixative on the work? Is it applying dark colors? Is it applying your light colors? Is it drawing of your sketches? Is it stretching of your cardboard? What is the first step? The answer is what? D, drawing of your sketch work. All right, let's try another question, and then that will be that for all for today. All right, let's see question. All right, question 29. Let's try question 29. The printing instrument above is known as dash. The printing instrument above is known as dash. A, clothes. B, frame. C, ink. D, mesh. And E, squeegee. What is the printing equipment you're seeing above? Did I hear you say squeegee? You're wrong. The answer is what? Mesh. It's the printing mesh that you're seeing above. Thank you for participating in today's class. You can practice more questions using the exam guide.
Now the app scores and give a detailed explanation of all the questions at the end of your practice test. Now you can learn a particular topic of interest with different modes like study mode, mock mode, and practice mode. It also have other features that make learning fun. Now it is a must-have for all serious students. Download the app from www.examguide.com if you don't have it yet. See you in the next class. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and then share this video to anyone you know that would benefit from it. Thank you, and bye-bye.